Hello, everybody. Hello again, and VOE Live. I'm your host, Justin Kennington, and this is TV for ProAV. Boys and girls, I am excited about today's show. Our guest is Roland Hemming. I'm going to check my memory banks. I think he's the first proper audio guy that we've had on the show, right? SDVoE, we're all about video and all that sort of thing. And meanwhile, we've been talking about personal topics and industry topics this year, but we're going to have a real audio guy on the show. And we're going to make him talk about video. Oh, well. Roland is with RH Consulting, and for the past 10 years, he and his colleagues have put out a report called the Networked Audio Report. It is one of the simplest ideas that you can think of, but really very interesting. And here's the idea. Very simple. 10 years ago, Roland said, why don't we count every networked audio product out there that uses some sort of interoperable standard? And I think back then there was AVB, there was CobraNet, there was the early days of Dante, Ravenna, a few others. And he would just count them and say, oh, look, this year there are 12 AVB products and 52 Dante products and so on. But he's been doing this for 10 years. And so now there's all sorts of rich data as you see how the different standards maneuvered and succeeded and failed against one another. Anyway, it's going to be fascinating to talk to him because, and here's the reason we've invited him on, for the 10th year of that report, he has decided that we should count video products too. So this year's report, which by the way you can access by looking in the links down below on this page, you can access the report there and you can read about how many video products adhere to various standards, how many audio products adhere to various standards. You will see, as you can probably imagine, Dante has really taken over the networked audio world, and that's reflected in the data. You know, I should have memorized these stats before we started the show. However, over 80% of the products on the network side are Dante. So I'm going to say, let's take it over to the Hotline Central. It's perfect. Matt, are you with me? Things are blowing up in the studio. That is how exciting this episode is going to be. Did I tell you, or did I tell you?
Yeah, we love keeping you on your toes, don't we? Hi, everybody. It's me, your favourite English chap. Well, might be the second favourite English chap after today. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to talk to Roland. I've been reading this report for the last 10 years and using it. So to finally get to meet face-to-face and talk to him is going to be exciting for me.
Wow, JK's hero. Well, we have, as you can probably hear, a team of moderators ready, as we always do. Roland is here with Justin to talk audio and video and how the two things, this is going to be a force of nature, these two colliding. Fantastic. So get your comments and your questions in. Really important. Live at sdvoe.org or use the chat window. Get stuck in. The moderators are here to respond, to thank you, to send those questions and comments to us, and we can deal with them here live. And it really is live. You saw that when JK freaked out a second ago, but he was fine. It was just a joke we played on him. Is that right? A little joke. Give us your feedback on the show as well, please, because we need to know, tell us what you think. Tell us what you want to see. We're here. We want to hear from you. JK, we have, as always, had a question already. Charles McIntosh of Indiana. What's the hardest part of counting all the gear in your networked audio report? You should have that question in front of you as well, because you might not remember that.
We'll check in with Roland on that. Meanwhile, why don't we, you come on into the studio with me, let's do the news.
Will do. it's a real job having to run down all those stairs to come down here. Real job. You don't know how hard I work.
And why should I? And why should I? Did we tell the folks? I didn't mean to. I meant to. I didn't in my flusteredness. Email us at live@sdvoe.org. And in the after show, we will bring your questions to Roland, our guest. So if you think of something, just shoot it to that email address, and it'll get right to us. Matt, let's look at some.
Half of that. I said half of that.
Did you?
Let's do some news. That's my line. You can't take my lines off me. I didn't take it. I thought about taking it, but I didn't take it. You see that? Very good. First up, we have an article about Game Creek Video, who have entrusted company TSL with Dante products for remote audio stream support. And this talks through a number of really interesting things about helping production teams to remotely access onboard trucks at live events and broadcasts to produce and control all of those live events remotely in light of recent things. So hybrid conditions, if you will, hybrid working conditions for live broadcast teams. So a very interesting article. Imagine controlling the Super Bowl from your bed. That'd be cool, wouldn't it? Well, I did. Then I'm a bit strange. It describes how Dante technology is being used to offer more remote functionality. You can even monitor up to like 128 audio channels at once. It's amazing. It's a very clear example of true AV and IT convergence, in my opinion. What are your takeaways?
Well, yeah, but not only AV and IT convergence, also sort of ProAV and broadcast convergence, which is what caught my eye about this piece. You had just put together a new course in the Academy on using SDVoE in sort of the peripheries of a broadcast environment. And to me, what I saw here was exactly an example of that, using Dante, not SDVoE, Dante for audio, but to do some sort of, as I understood it, look, I'm not a broadcast engineer. I don't know what goes on in these trucks exactly, but it seemed like they just wanted some sort of external monitoring of audio systems. This wasn't in the center of the production, and that's just what you talked about in that course, was finding ways for SDVoE to allow people around a broadcast facility to monitor the events going on. I thought it was a perfect parallel to that course.
Yeah, I kind of, my thoughts went out to the onboard truck drivers, because they might start feeling really lonely, right? Where's all my pals? They're not here. What are they going to do?
I think they're being replaced by robots. Is that not the case? Self-driving trucks. My goodness, where will it go next? Yeah, it was good. And Game Creek Video in the article also predicted that remote broadcast solutions like this will continue to be utilised for future sports broadcast events and productions. So it's growing, and it's not going to grow much quicker than that kind of outside broadcast. So very, very interesting article, and a nice segue into the second piece, which is about the accelerating merge of ProAV and IP. Take it away. Yeah, I don't think we need to belabor the point that ProAV and IT networks are merging. This specifically is about the fact that we seem to have hit recently an inflection point, and that merge is, well, just like it says right here on the screen, it's accelerating. I think a lot of that is driven by some of the work from home trends over the last couple of years. But one of the things I saw in the article that caught my eye was the idea of systems combining lecture capture, video conferencing, and even broadcast production techniques. I mean, hello, does that sound familiar to anybody here? Anyway, but combining those things demands a move away from that 5-year-ago model of segregating AV on its own network into a world where you have to integrate AV onto a single main network, because it is so tied in with these other IT services now that you simply have to move them together. And I think that's fundamentally what's driving this acceleration. It's demand. There's now there are use cases that say you have to do this, and that's ultimately what drives any technology.
Yes, and Chris Pennell from FutureSource does a great job of succinctly explaining this. And we've been saying this for quite some time as well, right? We've got lots of content on the Academy that really help you to fully understand the implication, or not the implication, but how to design it properly, AV over IP, you know, making sure that you're thinking about the AV infrastructure and the IP infrastructure, the data infrastructure going together correctly. You should check those out. Don't just go sticking video across a network, because there's some stuff in there that will tell you why that's not the case. Interesting to hear Chris's comments as well on cloud-based solutions, that they're on the rise. Are we expecting SDVoE over cloud at some point, JK?
Well, in fact, if you watch our membership list, one of our newest members is a company called Excite, and this is what they do, is connect audio-video devices into a cloud for monitoring and for control and management. So certainly you can watch to see SDVoE become more and more integrated with that platform, allowing us to do great things on the local network, but also to do things in the cloud, sure.
Brilliant. Well, that was the news. Wow, we got him. We got him. JK, we did it. We beat him. No
Well, I don't think
sting
you're
there, you
supposed to
see.
sting him out of it, are you?
Well, no, I know, but I just thought I'd try it on. There it is. Right, anyway, you have an interview to do, and we're all excited, so I'm not going to keep you any longer. Leave you with it, and have fun. Enjoy.
Our guest today, I sort of told you all about the report and how much I enjoyed reading it. Roland has been an independent consultant for very large audio systems based in the UK and around the world, the systems. So why don't we just bring him in? Roland, come on.
Hello, and thank you very much for inviting me on. It's great to be here.
Well, good afternoon, good evening. I'm glad you've come. So, I mean, let's start with the obvious question. What in the world made you decide some 10 years ago, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make a spreadsheet and I'm going to count every networked audio product I can find and make a list. Why did you do that?
What it was is it was discussions about AVB, because there was a huge amount of publicity about it, you know, from about 2009. Major companies were involved. Everybody was talking about it. But there just didn't seem to be any reality. So you'd have all these discussions about it being the next big thing. And then we just thought, well, let's find out. And, you know, it was weird when we did our first research. Well, there were 50 companies apparently supporting it. But then we found only 21 products. And then you sort of realize that the difference between the hype and the reality different, especially when at the time there were over 200 Cobranet and getting on for 200 Dante products around. So it was just a way of framing the debate and giving people a feeling of reality of what actually was out there. And all our research has always been on what is available to use. What can I get as a specifier? That's what it's always been.
I remember, I mean, I said I've used the report. When I started reading it, I was working at Crestron. I was running their digital media product line and thinking about what is the future. I'm not going to say too much about their internal stuff, but you know, what was our future roadmap for getting to moving video over a network? And of course, the question in my mind is, oh, AVB, it's hot, it's everywhere, right? Is that what we should use? And then I would read your report and it says it's not there. And I remember once describing, I don't want to make this a, you know, let's just throw shade at AVB conversation, but I remember saying to people, AVB seems to have the highest ratio of hype to adoption that I've ever seen. And so it was great to have that data. So first of all, thanks for that. Or I guess second of all, in 10 years now, looking back on the audio side, what have you learned? What are the trends? What came out of this?
I mean, first of all, just massive adoption. I mean, hundreds of manufacturers, thousands, you know, literally now thousands of products. And what we've also seen is real integration into products. It was something that we commented on, that in the early days, the majority of products were just getting audio on and off the network. They were converters. Okay. And then they, you know, converted normally to analog at each end. And that's changed significantly. Those products, there's still plenty of them, but they're not in the majority by any stretch now. And, you know, the stuff is built directly into the back of microphones, mixers, amplifiers, loudspeakers. And that's you know, been a huge change, because once you get rid of all of that analog, well, then really interesting things happen, because you can start to change the form factor of products. that was never able to be done before. With PoE now, it's just one cable for lots of things. So it's I think that's the trend is true integration into products.
Yeah. Okay. That sort of inspires me to a question that I'm not an audio guy, right? I've spent my time in ProAV as a video guy who tries to respect and remember that audio exists so that I don't make video products that ignore it. How much analog connectivity is left in just the real world of systems?
Well, this has been another point we've tried to make, because even though we've sort of had fun trying to show this as a sort of competition between Dante and Ravenna and others, we've actually always considered that the real competitor is analog. And even now, we still think that the vast majority of audio systems out there are analog. We think maybe 10% of the entire professional audio market is networked. Now, the higher value stuff is all networked. Where do we get that figure from? Because that's not based on research. So you walk through any town or city, maybe except Vegas, but walk through any other normal town or city and just count the bar, the local theatre, the local music venue, things like that. And the majority of those systems will be analog. The stadium will be networked, and some very nice conference centre might be, but still the vast majority of those systems are still analog. So we think there still needs to be a massive shift for everything in professional audio to be to be networked, but it is coming. But the other thing that's changing, it isn't just the huge number of products. I mean, we've always said the Stone Age didn't end because we ran out of stone. What we've noticed now is there's been a number of pivotal products that are networked only, because for many years a product would have a network connection and an analog connection, and those network connections are starting to disappear for reasons I said earlier, because you can be more interesting with the form factor or the power or something like that. And well, if you really want to use that product in your project, well, then you're forced down the network route, because it means the second product in your signal chain is going to be networked as well. So we've noticed there's been a few of these, as I said, these pivotal products that are sort of forcing people down that route. And then, of course, once they do it once, they realize it's not quite so scary, and they do it again and again. So, yeah.
Interesting.
That's what we've seen.
Interesting. And lessons for me there as I try to drive more video onto the network. What do you think that the ProAV industry can learn from your data that we might have missed had someone not done this?
I think seeing the fact that it has become, truly integrated. I think that's been the real understanding that you have products that are, people call them Dante products or Ravenna products. That they are, it's just part, or AVB products. It's just part of how they are and how they operate, and the fact that it's become, how you think about systems. And I don't think as many people, because we know a lot of people read our report, and we know product management teams look at it to decide what they're going to adopt, and I think people wouldn't have just understood just how much was being actually genuinely put into products had we not been saying, right, there's this number of mixing consoles, this number of amplifiers, and such like. So I think that's been a good lesson for the industry.
Yeah, that makes sense. So here we are 10 years in, and you decided in the 2022 report, let's count network video products too. What drove that thinking?
Well, without wanting to patronize the audience, it was because we felt video was finally growing up. And we've also felt, and I've said, and I believe independently you've said it, that network video has been like the Wild West. And we observed a growth in SDVoE and the emergence of some other protocols used by other manufacturers, and so it just seemed the right time. Now, I would argue that people are saying, well, 10 years. There was this happy coincidence that when we did the edition, the number of video products we get now is almost identical to the number of audio products we counted 10 years ago. So some people are saying, oh, well, video is about 10 years behind. Actually, I think it's probably more like where the audio industry was 15, 16 years ago. If we're looking at sort of 2006, something like that, CobraNet was starting to die because Peak had decided not to use it. Ethersound was sort of on the way out. There was no cross compatibility. Dante had only just been invented, and so it'll be interesting to see where it goes. But I think it has been this, from a network point of view, less mature technology, and as I said, there's still no de facto standard like there is, with Dante, for example, and there's still no sort of interoperable standard like we have with AES-67, and so that's what really brought it out. We could see these technologies emerging, and there's so many products that combine audio and video. We didn't really feel we could carry on, just doing audio. And indeed, we've also started looking at control protocols as well, and lumping that into it as well, because it's all very well transporting this stuff all around, but you've got to be able to control it as well. So that was included for the first time this year as well.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So you touched on it a little bit, the parallels between where video and audio are. What do you think that we can predict for the next 5 or 10 years of the networked video market that maybe we learned from the last 10 or 15 years of the networked audio market?
I think it's really tricky, because the things that are holding back video aren't the same things that are holding back audio. When we talk about networked audio, we basically now say we have unlimited channels. A 1 gigabit network, we can get hundreds of channels in, what most audio professionals would call perfect quality. So the bandwidth issue is just not there. It's not particularly expensive to implement into products. Whereas video still hasn't reached, for want of a better word, perfect quality. Where are we going to stop and say, yeah, okay, that's enough, 8K, 16K? So we're still pushing bandwidth. And so I'm not sure, as I said, there's a direct parallel between what's holding it back, because you haven't been, just because it's a more bandwidth heavy technology, been in the position that you can just pick up a Cat5 and drive 100 channels of 8K video through it anywhere. Whereas with audio, we can do the equivalent of that now.
Certainly take a very special Cat5.
Indeed, but actually, that's what we can do with audio. I now, there's a stadium that I've worked with for many years where we've completely integrated with the IT, and literally any RJ45 socket across the entire site, we can call up 100 channels if we want to, and that's fine. You don't have that yet with video, so I think there's still technical challenges to overcome there that are unique to video, and that's real key difference.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm realizing, and I'm just sort of paraphrasing you, but video is still growing in its bandwidth, as the network is also growing in its bandwidth. But there's this, who's ahead curve kind of going up. Whereas, as you say, we've sort of achieved perfect audio. That's not growing. So now just the network bandwidth continues to grow, and audio's needs don't go up. So now we can just manage the audio instead of also managing the bandwidth. That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
With about 30 seconds left before I go on to another segment, I was very proud and happy that SDVoE ended up with the most products on this year's list. My question to you is, what's your advice to me to make sure that SDVoE stays on top of that list for 10 years?
I think you need to be open and friendly. SDVoE is a bit like Dante in that it contains some proprietary technology. However, when you look at Ordinate and how they've behaved, they adopted AES-67, which is an interoperable protocol. They allowed it to operate again, alongside Ravenna and other things. They didn't put up a completely walled garden. They said, no, these things exist. We're going to work with them. Theoretically, they've had some claims over some other open technologies that they deliberately haven't pursued because they know for the greater good, it's better that these things are kept open. They haven't even sued people who brought out competitor cards which have the same pinouts, because again, they know that it's just better to be open and try to grow adoption. And they've also been very honest about their numbers. And I think the only thing we've had in discussion for the future is SDVoE defining what actually is a product and what actually is available on the market. And I'm sure we'll have conversations more about that. But finally, sorry, I know you only gave me 30 seconds, is they've really continued to develop the technology. It isn't something that they invented and that's it and job done. They've poured millions into new hardware and software, and there's many, many different ways to adopt it. And it's evolved. And these things have to evolve. So it does mean some of the very, very old stuff is no longer compatible, not much at all. But that will inevitably, happen, just as it does when you buy, new software upgrades. You get, so many years. But they've kept at it and listened to the market, and that's what I would advise anybody who wants to, succeed.
I like it. Let's put a pause in it here. We'll talk to you more in the after show in a couple of minutes, and let me send you guys to a fact check. Matt, you better get out here, Matt. Speak up. Talk louder. You got to talk louder, Matt.
Can you hear me okay?
Oh, yes, I hear you just fine.
I love it when you guys ask us Brits for advice. It's brilliant. It makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. So, keep your questions coming in. We've got loads coming in already. Check out, don't forget, the related courseware in the resource panel below. One describes an interconnect between the most popular video over IP standard and the most popular audio over IP standard. And the second one talks about the most popular video over IP standard and how it comes to us from the broadcast world. So check these courses out. They're really good. I'm going to hand back to Justin now so that he can just round off the show. Don't forget to see us in the after show. We'll see you shortly.
And what an after show it's going to be. We've got questions rolling in like I've never seen before. Remember, keep them coming live at sdvoe.org. Your questions for Roland Hemming about networked audio, networked video, Dante, AVB, Ravenna, all of it. Anyway, don't forget to catch us on social media with hashtag SDVoE Live. We're on Twitter, we're on LinkedIn, and check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com/SDVoE Alliance, where you can catch the entire archive of SDVoE Live. We will be back in 2 weeks with a show about SDVoE in the digital operating room. SDVoE has quietly made its way to taking over some of the digital operating room space. And our guest, Colin Dobbin, has long existed in that world, and he's going to tell you a lot more about it. So don't forget to check us out on YouTube, and we will see you in the after show.